Wait, did Jill Biden just say that? Stop what you're doing, you need to hear this. That's how thousands of Americans reacted the moment a shocking clip of First Lady Jill Biden started circulating across the internet. In just a few seconds, she said something so cutting, so unexpected, that it instantly became one of the most talked about moments in recent political memory. Let's set the scene. It was a high-profile event in Washington, D.C. The First Lady was standing in front of a group of supporters, smiling confidently, surrounded by fellow Democrats. The event was supposed to focus on education reform and women's empowerment, something Jill Biden has been very vocal about since stepping into the role of First Lady. But right in the middle of her carefully crafted speech, Jill's tone shifted. She began to speak more candidly, as if she had dropped the script entirely. Her smile tightened. Her gaze sharpened. And then came the moment. Some people pretend to fight for justice when really, they're just chasing attention, like that one Florida Barbie with a law degree. Boom. The crowd laughed nervously. Cameras blinked. Reporters stared at one another, wondering if they had heard that correctly. Was the First Lady really throwing shade? And more importantly, was that directed at Pam Bondi? To be clear, Pam Bondi isn't just anyone. She's a former Florida Attorney General, a respected legal figure, and a woman who has become one of the more recognizable conservative voices in America. She has made headlines for her fiery speeches, bold positions, and her unapologetic support of Donald Trump during the 2020 election. So when Jill Biden made that comment, the reference to a Florida Barbie with a law degree, everyone knew exactly who she was talking about. Let's pause here. This wasn't a random jab. It wasn't an accidental slip of the tongue. This was deliberate. A targeted swipe in front of the cameras, aimed straight at a political opponent, delivered with a smile but with undeniable intent. Within minutes, the internet exploded. Social media lit up like fireworks. Hashtags like hashtag Florida Barbie, hashtag Jill Biden shade, and hashtag Pam vs. Jill began trending across platforms. Twitter/X became a battleground. Some users praised Jill for speaking truth to power, while others slammed her for what they saw as a classless personal attack. One conservative user tweeted, "Jill Biden just proved she's no different from the petty elite she pretends to be better than. Calling Pam Bondi a Barbie? What are we, in high school?" Another shot back, "Maybe if Pam Bondi focused more on law and less on lip gloss, Jill wouldn't have had to say it." It was clear this was more than just a political disagreement. This was now a viral cultural moment, with people picking sides, making memes, and debating whether the First Lady had just crossed a line. News outlets couldn't get enough. Headlines flooded in, "First Lady throws shade, was Jill Biden targeting Pam Bondi?" CNN, "Jill Biden calls out Florida Barbie, conservative Twitter erupts, Fox News insult or empowerment?" Jill Biden's words spark feminist debate, The Hill, and let's not forget the reactions from inside political circles. Quietly, many on the left were concerned. Jill Biden is known for her controlled, composed image, someone who often rises above the fray. This felt different. Personal. Aggressive. And for some, off-brand. For Pam Bondi's supporters, it was a cheap shot, an elitist slap from a woman who should know better. But for others, it was a rare glimpse behind the polished public face of Washington, a moment of raw, real emotion. Still, one thing was clear, this wasn't just a soundbite. It was a spark that lit a fire. Because as the media frenzy grew louder, one question began to dominate the conversation: how is Pam Bondi going to respond? She had been insulted on a national stage. She had every reason to strike back, to defend herself, to launch her own counterattack. But surprisingly, she didn't. Not at first. And that silence? That pause? It was the calm before one of the most unforgettable responses in political memory. The internet explodes, outrage, memes, and millions watching ***. If you thought Jill Biden's dig at Pam Bondi would just blow over quietly, think again. Because within minutes, the internet did what it does best, it exploded. Clips of the First Lady's off-script jab, calling Pam Bondi a Florida Barbie with a law degree, were being shared, clipped, re-edited, and meme feed faster than you could refresh your feed. Every platform was on fire. On Twitter/X, users flooded timelines with outrage and support. On TikTok, content creators reenacted the scene dramatically, some with comedy, others with fiery commentary. On YouTube Shorts, reaction videos started pouring in. Even Facebook groups that hadn't posted in months were suddenly alive again, sharing the video with captions like, "Can you believe the First Lady just said this?" And the hashtags? Oh, they took off like rockets. Hashtag Florida Barbie, hashtag Pam vs Jill, hashtag First Lady fail, hashtag Bondi response when one meme showed a Barbie doll holding a law book, standing on the steps of the Florida Supreme Court with the caption, "Not just a pretty face, Dr. Biden." Another had a side-by-side of Jill Biden and Pam Bondi, labeled educator versus enforcer. Suddenly, everyone had an opinion, whether they followed politics or not. Even celebrities chimed in. One reality TV star tweeted, "Jill went savage, but did she go too far?" A popular conservative podcast host shot back, "Pam Bondi's about to teach the First Lady a lesson they don't offer in community college." But while the world debated the ethics of the insult, another kind of tension was building, one that no meme or tweet could distract from. Everyone was waiting for Pam Bondi's response. Now let's be clear, Pam Bondi is no stranger to controversy. Throughout her career, she's faced down political rivals, spoken boldly at Republican national conventions, and gone head-to-head with national media. She's tough, sharp, and never one to shy away from a fight. Which made her reaction to Jill Biden's insult even more shocking. Because it didn't come right away. Instead of firing off a tweet or hopping on a cable news segment, Pam went completely silent. No statement. No press conference. Nothing. And that silence? It said more than words ever could. The longer she stayed quiet, the more the pressure built. News anchors speculated nonstop. Is she crafting a response? Is she ignoring it to stay above the drama? Or is she preparing something bigger than we think? Conservative media urged her to hit back. Liberal commentators started to wonder if maybe the First Lady had made a mistake by poking the bear. Pam's supporters were itching for her to speak up. You could almost hear the chants. Say something. Clap back. Remind them who you are. Even mainstream outlets couldn't ignore it anymore. Every political talk show featured a segment on the clash. Headlines were everywhere. Jill Biden's words still echo. Pam Bondi yet to respond. Political chess match or silence with a strategy? Bondi's stillness sends a message louder than words. The silence was driving people crazy, but in a way that only made what was coming next that much more powerful. Because what no one realized was that Pam Bondi wasn't hiding. She was calculating. While the world was watching, tweeting, and arguing, Pam was doing what any great strategist does. She was waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And when she did, it would be with precision, purpose, and poise. Because if you thought Jill's insult made headlines, Pam Bondi's response was about to make history. Pam Bondi's calm before the storm, the silence that built suspense ***, the internet was buzzing. The headlines were relentless. The pressure was on. But Pam Bondi? She was silent. And in the world of politics, silence isn't just the absence of noise, it's a strategy. For over 48 hours, while the media whipped itself into a frenzy and social platforms churned out memes like wildfire, Pam Bondi didn't say a single word. Not a tweet, not a press release, not even a vague Instagram story. And that silence? It was deafening. You could almost feel the country holding its breath. Because Pam Bondi is not the kind of woman who backs down. She's not afraid of public fights. She's gone toe-to-toe with reporters, legal giants, and political elites, and she's always come out swinging. So why the silence now? Speculation ran wild. Some pundits said she was waiting for the right network deal to make her comeback statement. Others believed she was crafting a legally precise, media-savvy rebuttal. A few even floated the idea that she might ignore the insult altogether. To prove that Jill Biden's words didn't even deserve acknowledgement. But Bondi's supporters knew better. They knew something was coming. And it wasn't going to be loud. It wasn't going to be dramatic. It was going to be devastating in its precision. Because Pam doesn't do emotional outbursts. She does calculated moves, and that's exactly what she was preparing. Then, on a quiet Thursday morning, with no media buildup, no hype, and no warning, it dropped. A single video. Posted directly to Pam Bondi's official account, no hashtags, no flashy graphics, no music. Just a clean, steady shot of her standing on the steps of a courthouse. Dressed in professional navy, arms relaxed, expression calm but direct. She looked straight into the camera. And then she spoke. For those wondering why I didn't respond right away, it's because I don't chase cheap drama. I respond with purpose. Boom. The tone was set. She didn't name Jill Biden directly. But everyone knew exactly who she was talking about. I've been called many things in my career: attorney, prosecutor, advocate. And yes, apparently now, a Florida Barbie with a law degree. She paused for just a second, letting that line hang in the air. Well, if standing up for victims, defending the law, and holding people accountable makes me a Barbie, then I'm proud to say I've done it in heels in a courtroom. The internet erupted again. But this time, the tone had shifted. Gone were the memes and jokes. Suddenly, people were nodding, applauding, reposting with captions like, classy. Powerful. That's how you respond. Pam Bondi just redefined the word composure. A law degree and lethal delivery. Jill messed with the wrong one. And perhaps the most important reaction? Silence from Jill Biden's camp. No follow-up. No clarification. No apology. Nothing. Because Pam's video wasn't a rant, it was a reality check. Calm. Clean. Devastating. She didn't sink to insults. She didn't scream or shame. She simply held up the facts and let her decades of work speak louder than any nickname ever could. By the end of the 2-minute video, Pam turned, walked down the steps, and disappeared out of frame, no mic drop needed. That silence she held for 2 days? Now it made perfect sense. She wasn't hiding. She was planning. And in that quiet, she had crafted something more impactful than any insult could ever be. A response so composed, so articulate, and so perfectly timed, it left even her critics speechless. The response heard around the country, calm, cool, and crushing ***. Pam Bondi didn't just respond. She delivered a masterclass. In just over 2 minutes, Bondi did what few politicians, or even seasoned public figures, can do. She took an insult designed to demean her and flipped it into a moment of pure empowerment. Let's break down what made her response so unforgettable. First off, it was controlled. Pam didn't yell. She didn't mock Jill Biden. She didn't match insult with insult. Instead, she maintained her composure, delivered her message clearly, and let the truth and her record speak for itself. I've spent my life defending people. Fighting for justice. And doing it with integrity. I've never needed approval from the White House or validation from political elites. That line hit hard. Because it reminded everyone, left, right, or center, that Pam Bondi is more than just a talking head on cable news. She's a seasoned attorney, a former prosecutor, and someone who has fought real battles both in and out of the courtroom. But the real showstopper? If standing for conservative values makes me a Barbie, then maybe we need more Barbies in politics. Mic dropped. That single sentence turned the insult on its head. What was meant to belittle her image was now rebranded as a symbol of strength. And women across the political spectrum took notice. Even some who didn't always agree with Bondi's politics found themselves nodding in respect. Because this wasn't just a defense, it was a reclamation of narrative. Suddenly, conservative women across social media were posting with the hashtag Barbie with a brain. Female attorneys, politicians, and influencers began sharing stories of how they've also been underestimated or judged for their looks in professional settings. Pam Bondi's response didn't just hit back at Jill Biden's comment, it sparked a larger conversation about how women are still judged not by their credentials, but by their appearance. And for many, Pam's response was a rallying cry. On YouTube, her video was shared by major conservative channels, racking up millions of views in just a few days. Reaction videos popped up everywhere. This is how you shut someone down without losing your cool. Pam Bondi just outclassed the First Lady with one line. Professional, poised, and absolutely powerful. But what made it even more impactful was what she didn't do. She didn't drag Jill Biden's past into it. She didn't bring up Joe Biden. She didn't turn it into a political mud fight. She simply reminded the country who she is and why she's earned her place in the spotlight. And that silence from Jill Biden's side? It only amplified Bondi's win. There was no statement, no apology, no clarification, just silence. Because once Pam dropped her video, the conversation shifted. What began as an insult turned into a moment of political poise that had people talking about confidence, professionalism, and what it truly means to clap back without stooping low. Pam Bondi didn't scream. She didn't rant. She delivered. And in doing so, she showed millions that true strength doesn't always come from being loud. Sometimes, it comes from being precise, smart, and unshakably calm under fire. Her response wasn't just heard, it was felt. And across the nation, people realized this wasn't a political moment, it was a cultural one. The aftermath, why this moment matters more than you think **** in a world flooded with soundbites, outrage, and hot takes, something about Pam Bondi's response felt different. It wasn't just a win in a war of words. It was a moment that cut through the noise. A rare instance when someone in the political arena chose composure over chaos, and still came out stronger. Because this was never really about being called a Florida Barbie. It was about what that kind of label represents and what happens when women, especially conservative women, are dismissed, underestimated, or mocked for their appearance instead of recognized for their accomplishments. Pam Bondi didn't just defend herself, she redefined the narrative. She stood on the courthouse steps, looked straight into the lens of the American public, and said, "You don't get to define me. I'll do that myself." And people listened. Suddenly, her video was being played in classrooms discussing media and gender. College debate teams referenced it as a case study in rhetorical power. Even some progressive voices admitted, we don't have to agree with her politics to respect the way she handled that. And perhaps the biggest takeaway? This wasn't just Pam versus Jill. It was a reminder to the nation, to the media, to politicians, and to everyday people about the power of measured strength. We've grown used to public figures who respond to every slight with screaming matches, Twitter rants, or emotionally charged press conferences. Pam Bondi chose a different path, and it worked. Because in those 48 hours of silence, she showed us something rare, that real power doesn't always shout. Sometimes, it simply waits for the right moment, and then speaks so clearly that the world has no choice but to listen. The moment Jill Biden made her comment, she might have thought it would be a passing joke, a zinger to get a chuckle from her audience. But what she accidentally did was light a match that revealed something deeper, the way women in power are still scrutinized, still judged, and still forced to fight battles their male counterparts never face. Pam Bondi turned that insult into a megaphone, not just for herself, but for every woman who's ever been belittled for being bold, beautiful, or both. And that's what left people speechless. So, was it just a clapback? Or was it a cultural reset? Backhand index pointing down, drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Pam Bondi handled it like a pro, or was Jill Biden's comment fair game? If you loved this breakdown, hit that like button, subscribe, and don't forget to ring that bell so you never miss the next political face-off we're covering. Because this wasn't just a political moment. It was a lesson in power and how to use it.